So this is the sanitation ordinance that we discussed earlier that incorporates the Sandy Springs model. Ordinarily, this would be a process that you could do probably over 2 to 3 months.
This Sandy Springs model is basically, you get to pick whoever you want that's on the list, right, to have sanitation service. They have higher rates of home ownership and higher rates of housing occupancy, so they don't have as many empty houses. So we have landlords that we can't get in contact with, and they're renters. Who picks those services? The renter. Does the renter pick it, or does the landlord pick it?
Well, ideally, under this model, it's going to be those people who leave trash, because you're not going to be aware, realistically, of who is not contracting for services unless it becomes an issue with trash accumulating.
So the people in our city that don't get trash service now will still not get trash service, and we won't know who they are unless the neighbor reports them.
Yeah, unless they leave trash or show some visible evidence. Now, we did put language in here where they're required to give notice of who they're servicing, but that would require the city to process that data and try to figure out who is not receiving services of that group, who is actually occupying the premises, and then going after that subset.
Right, so we have dozens of houses that will be doing that. So in addition, we are going to end up picking a sanitation provider for the city. It's just that the only people that will be subject to use it will be the people who didn't pick someone on their own.
So effectively, I would say if this is the model that you guys are looking for and it fits, and the issue was the insurance, then if you have settled that, then...
Right. So I ask those questions because I think that there are issues more than the insurance. That's just the cost we could find in such short notice, right? So I pointed out some other ones. I was going to ask if we could make the contracts a year, so that after a year we could, make decisions about. But I don't know what authority we have to enter into two private entities contracting with each other.
So their contract with the city are a year, and so let's look at it at the model for what it is. So they contract with the city and they get on our preferred list is what we'll call it, and that status lasts for a year. They evaluate it during that time, and then the city does or does not renew. For the purposes of this conversation, let's say that 2 people don't meet the qualifications and they're kicked off the list. Then in year 2, then you're down to 5, and then you pick and contract within those 5. So you definitely have the ability and the right to evaluate and make adjustments to the model.
Okay, this is my final question. In the original contract, I believe that the person that we were partnering with was going to put money up to educate the public. Who's going to educate the public on this model?
So I think the responsibility is joint between those that are on the preferred list and the city, which is why we're able to collect the fees to be able to provide public education as well as to be able to deliver those extended services that you referenced earlier. It would be a combination of our communications department and any expertise that we contracted out to help us get the word out, very similar to other activities that we discussed.
So we have to spend money to tell people that we have adopted a sanitation plan that they are responsible for being a part of.
Yes, ma'am. Which we would also do, or someone would do, using that same bucket of funding if we use the other model. No matter what we do, when we educate the public, well, it is going to cost. Whether it is the purchase of ads, mailers, television, billboard, but any of those activities that we would utilize, there is a cost to do that. And so there would be a cost to provide that public education. And it would be funded by the fees that we collect through this process.
Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? Okay. It passes. Here you are, that's 5. Mr. Baker's not here.
This is a no vote.
And I got you. Mr. Khalid is a no vote.
I kind of had a question for the city.
went through that. On the website, it says that, it reads that we will announce the sanitation provider on November 1st. That's the email I got at 4:30, that we're gonna announce that by November 1st in 7 days. That's the email that we got. So I just wanted to know who makes that announcement, who are those providers, because we aren't going to be together before November 1st. It came from the communications department. There's a sanitation fax link on our city's website. One of the questions says, when will sanitation services start? Sanitation services are scheduled to begin on Thursday, November 1st, 2018. Who are the sanitation vendors? The sanitation vendors will be selected based on the qualifying criteria. Once selected, qualified vendors and their contact information will be listed on this page.
Melanie Winfield, Assistant City Manager. That information is based upon our purchasing manager is working with vendors and sending out the information for them to go through their qualification process. That information is out on the streets now, and we anticipate that being completed by November 1st.
So just so to be clear, by November 1st, a list of approved sanitation providers will be on the website?
Correct.
And then are all citizens required to pick from one of those people, and how long do they have to drop their current services?
So according to legal, the ordinance is written.
Because I think the our attorney has some insights on that. So before we speak for her, let her chime in.
So the sanitation ordinance, the November 1st deadline is the deadline for operators to submit their signed contracts and materials that accompany the contracts to the city. And then after that submission, city staff will go through that. They'll have a checklist to make sure they meet all requirements, and as soon as the service providers are vetted, then the city will publish that list on the website.
Okay, so she's saying that happens on the 1st, but my question is...
No, that's not going to happen on the 1st. The providers have until the 1st to submit their information. It's probably going to take about 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks to vet that information and to actually approve the providers.
So at some point in November, a list of approved providers will appear on the city's website.
Correct.
And then if my current provider is not on that list, how long do I have to drop them and get one of the providers that is on that list?
Well, there's not a deadline, it's just that you'll be non-compliant. It's like if my grass grows a certain level, how long do I have? You know, if your grass gets a certain level, it's a nuisance, you're non-compliant. It's kind of the same concept. If you are using a provider who is not on the provider list, or if you were providing services and you're not approved, then you're technically violating the city code.
And is the only notice that we are giving to citizens this website, or are we going to send something out in the mail that says these are the 5 approved sanitation providers? Because my fear is that I know that in legal terms, ignorance is no defense. So how are we notifying people that we are later going to hold accountable if they say I didn't know this was on the website?
Well, I know administratively, so we've had a discussion. One, one notice has been given out just through the council meetings occurring, but 2, we plan to publish on the city website. We plan to also give a template letter to the vendors to put on their website and to also circulate when they give their invoices.
Okay, the last thing, might I suggest that we mail out a card? I don't know if we have money for that, but we mail out a card, because I know a lot of my residents are often saying, I need something in the mail.
Yeah, I believe there's if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Freeman, can you come up? Ms. Freeman, I believe we had talked about including it in a bill or something of that nature, right? Can you give us some insight on that?
We talked about reaching out to the power companies that provide services to South Fulton residents, having an insert placed in the bills. We've done that before in previous places that I've worked. It's been pretty effective, like Atlanta Fire, for instance. And one of the other things that we want to do is make sure that we put together a notifier via our constant contact press that we send out to all the residents. a specific one to sanitation and all the services that will be provided and all the vendors that they can choose from. So those are two additional things that we talked about doing in addition to what the city attorney has mentioned.
Thank you. Councilman Gomes.
And I just want to make sure, didn't I see an FAQ that came out today regarding?
I think that's what he's referring.
Okay. So that is what's going to be mailed, or you're going to create something else?
No, it's going to be something created specifically that tells you what the services are, what the model is we're using, and the vendors that you can choose from, you know, and a few other questions that, you know, residents might have relative to the services.
Okay, all right, thank you.